welcome back to another episode of B to Z. We're going to be doing things maybe a little bit differently. I feel like we were going on this path in the previous episodes, but it's going to be an episode that's going to be just dedicated to one topic because the topic we're going to be going into, I feel like it's not a good idea to just jump over that topic and move on to a bunch of others for the episode. So it's going to be very focused on this one. But before we get into that, we're going to introduce a couple of things here because, we noticed that we don't really do that. So if you weren't here from the beginning, you won't really understand what is going on here. Right. We have this buzzer, which we call the cancel buzzer. And what this is anytime someone says something offensive, whether it's us or the audience that's watching us or our team, in quotes, but our team, if they say something offensive, we press the buzzer, meaning you're going to get us canceled if you say that, so you have to stop. That's pretty much what it means. And then we have our sound bites. So me and Z only use ours for this episode. We usually have a bit more, but mine is this one.
Not a lawyer.
And then Z's is this one. So on this podcast, apparently everyone always tries to make me out to be a lawyer, which can make me lose my license and my job. So I've had to create a button for it. And then with Z, you like things to be fact checked. So that's your button now.
Yes, exactly.
So what we're going to be talking about today is the Israel and Palestine conflict. Yeah. Which is obviously a very talked about thing right now. Today is November 4th that we're filming. So since it's being covered in the news, because this conflict has been going on for decades, but since it's been widely covered in the news since October 7th, it's only been like less than a month. This is all the information we currently have. This is the information that we've been able to find. Yeah. So we're going to try to talk about this in a way that I don't necessarily want to say is... It's not necessarily going to be neutral, but to try to dispel a lot of the, to talk about a lot of the confusions, even like some of the propaganda that's being spread around and a lot of the misinformation. We're kind of hoping that we can actually get past that and to actually look at what happened, what's been happening, what's been going on, what's being talked about, and getting different perspective on it, because we obviously have our crew that know what they know, but then we have our backgrounds and what we know. So I have a Polish background, which obviously is like, for this conflict specifically, I don't know. I think the only thing that I would really jump in with is what happened with the Holocaust and World War II, and kind of having the comparisons of that and what's happening here. And obviously you have
I'm a Syrian Arab Muslim background, so obviously both sides is very imperative and important to voice this. And that's why we decided unanimously to agree on having this discussion and talk about this whole situation that's been unfolding on a global scale.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like, I personally feel like when something like this is happening, there should be a discussion about it. There should be people trying to figure out the truth and what's going on and what's happening and how we approach the situation.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So the way that we wanted to start this off was kind of summarizing, I think, what happened over the last 75 years. And I feel like you kind of gave me a really good summary about it. Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot here.
No, it's fine.
But, if you want to kind of go over what you know, because obviously neither of us are necessarily experts on it. We're not like people who
study this for years and stuff like that.
Or in university for this, but this is just the information that we know and that's available to us, right?
Yeah, that we've learned thus far and stuff. And we're constantly going to be learning about this as more information surfaces to the public. So just a quick summary, we have the current occupation has been happening for the past 75 years, give or take, kind of right after World War II, when the Jews came from Europe, again, post-World War II. And I didn't bring the image with me, but there was an image where the Jews were arriving on a boat through the Mediterranean, as from my understanding, that they were getting rejected from every place they wanted to stay within Europe nations. So they migrated to Palestine, and they had a sign that said, "The Germans destroyed our hopes, our hopes and homes. Please don't destroy our hope." And so the Palestinians had welcomed the Israelis as guests and refugees, basically. And then about a year or so afterwards, things took a dark turn, which happened where the Israelis had massacred about 15,000 Palestinians and displaced over 750,000 Palestinians overall, which is now classified as the Nakba, also translated into the catastrophe. So it's an interesting point because we're mentioning about World War II.
Yeah.
So let's bring back some little more history information about that, and go into, I guess, why the Jews and the Israelis were leaving Europe, right?
Yeah. So a lot of what I've learned and what I've understood about it is that there were obviously a lot of Jewish people living in Europe, even during World War II.
Yeah.
And even after World War II, they were kind of being like moved around. Like they didn't really know what to do with them. And I remember even you told me that they were always kind of like all around the world. Yes. They never really had like a homeland, right? That was like one of the historical, like that's actually an important historical point, because there is a debate going on among people saying that, there's Israelis claiming that this is their homeland, but then Palestinians were always there, right? Yes. From the beginning. And that's kind of something that I feel like a lot of people didn't know, at least growing up. I don't know if everyone knew. And so with after World War II, right? What I understood, and like you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I was learning, fact check that. What I was understanding is that it was the English that actually made the decision to move them over to where Palestine was, right? And so it wasn't, like, from what I've learned, it wasn't necessarily a unanimous decision among, like, the Palestinians, I guess in the end agreed to it. I don't know if they really had a choice.
They kind of had to accept it too, right?
Yeah, and so, but there was also an issue, and this is something I learned too, is like it's important to understand the distinction between Jewish people, so people of Jewish faith or religion, and then Jewish people, and then Zionists.
Correct.
Because I feel like a lot of people use those words interchangeably.
Yeah.
And Zionists are the people who believe that Jewish people should have their own homeland, right?
Correct.
Their own land. And that doesn't necessarily mean that every Jewish is Zionist. It's not always the case.
Exactly.
Right?
And going back as well, we can kind of see this extremeness and stuff where you have the Germans and the Nazis, you have the Jews and the Zionists, you have Arab Middle Easterners and the ISIS and stuff. So you can kind of see the pattern with this, where the association is not always what is always provided to us. It's to know that the separation, not every Arab is terrorist, or not every German is a Nazi, and not every Jew is a Zionist.
And I think that's the biggest problem right now with how people are discussing this. They're not making distinctions.
No.
They're talking
It's because it's easier for them to, make it as one label than having that distinction.
But I also feel like it's related to the maybe misinformation that's being brought out, because a lot of people just kind of like group them together of like what happened with Hamas. That's what people are saying, that's what Palestinians did to them. But that doesn't mean that Palestinians, like all the Palestinians were involved in that, right?
100%,
And the same thing with Israel, is like people living in Israel, they're not the Israeli government. What the government is deciding to do and how they're deciding to react to the situation doesn't necessarily align with what their people want.
100%,
right?
Yeah. There was actually a lot of own Jews protesting within Israel and in America. They're against this whole situation because they don't stand for that, and they're not aligning with the government in that regard, right? So it kind of shows that not every Jew is for this, situation.
And there's also Palestinian Jews.
Yeah.
There's also Palestinian Jews, right?
Yeah, so we're going to get into that too. So, going back, a little history journey, back in time, the Holy Land, where Palestine is situated, you had all three main religions deriving from, right? You have Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, from my understanding, the Jews have been a migrating tribe, and because it's originated there, they've always been migrating around, kind of like the Roma or Romani for the men, not gypsies. And so they were traveling around.
Apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they were a migrating tribe that liked to explore and gain knowledge through their findings from explorations. So that's when they traveled around Europe and then hit Germany, we know what happened. And so that's when they kind of went back, because they realized that since they were constantly migrating, they never had a land that they called home. So when shit hit the fan, they want to go back to their home. And the first, I guess one of the main lands that came to mind was the Palestine land. But that was also because, as you mentioned earlier, was the British promised them that land. I did see some articles that had other potential locations for the Israelis to go, or the Jews. I think one of them was considered was Albania, Palestine, and I think Argentina, if I'm fact check that. So
I heard something about, like, I don't know if it was Lebanon or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure there
was like a few other. There was like quite a few other countries they were considering.
Exactly. So in the end, they end up choosing Palestine as, you know, to going back to their homeland. Again, going back how all three religions came from there, so it made sense for them. You have Jerusalem and everything else biblical and historical about that, which made them go back. And then you have the whole Nakba, the catastrophe, and moving on from that as well.
Yeah, so from that, one thing that is often mentioned, and I think that this is something that I probably should have mentioned in the beginning, but one thing that's important to create the distinction is the whole point, or sorry, the difference between an explanation and justification. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that we're going to be explaining and we're going to be talking about, but that doesn't automatically mean it's a justification.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So when we're going to be talking about things like the idea of terrorism, which we're going to get into, and Hamas, and what happened on October 7th, and things like that, and what's happening right now, you know, we want it to be clear that this is often just an explanation, and we're just talking about what has happened and what is happening. Because one of the biggest issues that I've noticed from every video I've ever seen of anyone talking about this, especially BASSEM YOUSSEF, and I don't know if I'm saying it right because I hear BASSEM. It's BASSEM, okay?
Yeah,
I hear BASSEM and I hear BASSEM, so BASSEM YOUSSEF.
BASSEM is more authentic.
Yeah, so what I've heard BASSEM say, oh man, I lost my train of thought by interrupting myself with that. What was I saying? How did I start that sentence?
You were just stating how the distinctions and differences.
The distinctions, yeah. So we're just gonna be explaining. Yeah, we're gonna be explaining like what is going on. We're gonna be talking about what is being discussed, and if we're gonna be taking a side, we're gonna be very clear about that. Like I will specifically say I am taking the side of this person, right? So I just wanted to make that clear from the beginning. But on the topic of terrorism, so obviously.
So let's.
I don't know if you want to keep going in the history or if you want to just kind of jump into what happened October 7th, because obviously that's the main topic. But, you know, like we can briefly mention what happened October 7th because that was like the starting point. But since then, so much has been going on.
So that's why I also want to clarify as well. It's not actually the starting point. It was just the starting point
of the media.
The media and the resistance and stuff like that, which is the Hamas.
Oh, I just remembered my point. So what BASSEM was saying was regarding the media. It was regarding the media coverage. And I lost it again. Okay, go on. My apologies.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really good distinction to separate the two because it helps you as viewers receiving all these media information, propagandas, because you as viewers make a difference, right? Like this kind of affects everyone on a global scale, whether it's directly or indirectly, which is why it's imperative for everyone to be informed, you know, having this insight and being enlightened from this whole situation, as it benefits everyone, right?
Yeah, and the problem was, like you mentioned, that it's not just October 7th, right? So the problem that I've noticed too is a lot of people don't seem to know what is going on every single time Palestine and Israel are brought up in the news. Yeah. And it kind of gives you this indicator of how is this being portrayed and how is this being talked about. Because when I was talking to ZEE, I was saying when I was growing up, I kind of like I knew it was brought up, Israel-Palestine. Like I always knew about it.
But it was kind of in the back of your mind.
And it was and it wasn't really like covered and it wasn't really explained, and it felt like a lot of it was biased. Like a lot of it was biased information, and it was only the information that they were willing to show us.
Correct. That's a key point as well.
And so for some reason, people are always surprised when they hear about this, and they're always confused as to what is going on. And often Palestinians in general, I'm saying just Palestinians, are demonized in the media because
demonized, dehumanized. They're
the
treated
wording
as
is
animals,
important too,
which has mentioned in the Holocaust as well, towards the Nazis dehumanizing the Jews.
That was a thing that they did. They used to call them like rats, or they wouldn't call them human beings.
So that was actually a psychological tactic for their soldiers, I guess you want to call them, or just the Nazis in general, where they would use this psychological tactic to label them as something else to make it less effective for them, supporting and endorsing the killings and the concentration camps and stuff.
It was like, it's like a conditioning. Like a conditioning, like these are not people, so you shouldn't feel bad that we're getting rid of them.
Exactly. And the same tactic, which is very unfortunately ironic in a sense for, the Israeli Jews, Zionists, whatever, that had received the Holocaust happen to them, is now inflicting it onto the Palestinians. Which is obviously
with a different name.
It's like a different name, like that, right? Like you would think that someone who experienced something so tragic would not inflict that onto someone else, another demographic group. But now they are, and they're trying to justify it all. It kind of collapses on itself. It just
but see, the problem with that is that and this is the problem. It's the Israeli government doing it, right?
Correct.
So it's not necessarily, but there are videos of citizens in Israel and in Palestine, which we wanted to bring up the whole resentment issue.
Yes.
People have talked about this. So seeing Israelis cheering when they see a Palestinian getting killed, or Palestinians cheering when they see an Israeli get killed.
Yeah.
So this is happening on both sides, and a lot of people are using that as justification to say, oh, look at these people, these are animals. These are not human. These people don't have empathy, right?
They're kind of like getting little clips and kind of illustrating a picture for the viewers, right?
Yeah.
So.
And so it goes into the whole idea of like the resentment on both sides. So of course, like it's not right. It's never right for someone to cheer when an innocent person is being murdered or killed.
Yeah.
And so, but in the end, like there is like a whole historical background of what's going on. So there is an explanation for it, right? There is a reason for it.
To a degree. I mean, it depends on how what you define as the
explanation,
justification.
Yeah, but I'm not justifying it, but I think the problem is when people see this, their automatic reaction is to start, like you said, start saying, okay, these are the bad guys. These are the bad guys.
Yeah.
They're the ones who don't don't deserve this or deserve this to happen to them.
Right.
And I think the problem is that it's like the rage is being fueled on both sides. And
correct.
And so, if there's that anger towards Palestinians because they see them as they're killing our people, and then Palestine has that rage because they're seeing Israel as like killing our people and trying to get rid of them, then it's understandable to see that on both sides, because war is ugly. War is ugly 100%. On both sides.
And no matter what it is, no matter who's facing the war, who's fighting in the war, who's not in the war, whoever's fighting in the war, both sides experience casualties. Both sides experience losses. Both sides experience horrific, acts inflicted upon them. And, sometimes they say this is war. But the situation with this one is not as labeled as a war, because the thing is, you have a very distinct power difference, a power dynamic difference, right?
Yeah.
You have the Israeli military,
and that's important
defense,
to note.
The budgets, you have everything that they have.
The U.S. funding,
the security, the defenses. Like, they brag about how impenetrable their defense is and how the military is, the strongest in the world and everything like that. And then you have the other contrasting side, which is just primarily Palestinian civilians, because I know the media is always going to say Hamas and Hamas this and Hamas that. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, you look at the picture, just for the Gaza Strip, you have let's just make a whole number, 2 million
it's
Palestinians,
around 2
right?
million. Yeah.
And then based on their numbers, they're saying Hamas equates to about 9,000 members. So 9,000 compared to 2 million, that in itself is also a very big contrast too, right? It's not 2 million of the citizens are Hamas. Secondly, based on all the deaths and civilian casualties and that's been happening, there are about 9,000 deaths so far, with about 3,000 of them children, women, men.
A lot of children that are being killed.
And the other thing too is Hamas, out of that 9,000, apparently based on Israeli, information, that they've only killed 13 members. So, that's they can't justify that as this is war, this is to be expected, when the thing is their main target is to target Hamas and not the civilians, and yet the civilians are the one that's getting the brunt of this heinous
well, there's a lot of things that are happening that puts it into question. So a lot of what's been talked about is what a proportionate response is to terrorism,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So that's often because they did the same thing with ISIS, right? They're saying they're trying to find where they are. They're choosing to bomb these places because they understand that these people are being, like, Hamas is being held there. But then it puts into a lot of things are put into question when you're learning that there are areas that are not under, like, Hamas rule or jurisdiction, that are being bombed.
Like the UN hospitals, churches, mosques, schools, refugee camps.
Or even the West Bank.
The West Bank,
and
that's another big point.
And it's like, if you know that they're not, like, but then there's the whole thing of, like, what intel are they getting? How, like, because, like, we don't know the government intel. We don't know I'm just saying from my perspective, I know, you might know something I don't. You might know something I don't, but I'm just saying I've thought about this because I'm like, okay, military intel, I don't know, maybe they're hiding there. That can be my only assumption, but at the same time, when you're looking at, like, the whole picture, the grand scheme, it kind of puts it into question, especially because you had the whole situation where the Israeli government had warned Palestinians in Gaza to evacuate, and they only had that one path to evacuate, and while they were asleep, they were bombed with no warning, zero warning, and thousands were killed, families, kids, and they all ended up just going back home because they literally said they would rather die in their homes than die here out the street where, so what was that about is my question. And then it's like, and then it makes me wonder if that was, was that an intentional thing? Did they intentionally do that thinking maybe Hamas is among them and we will bomb them? But that's messed up because that is also a war crime, right?
Of course, right? Israel currently has broken at least, I'm just going to, from the top of my head, at least 30 international laws. And the whole thing is, like, why have international laws about wars and what's acceptable, what's not? What's that threshold if you're just going to, be above the law and just kind of shred the documents of your violations because you think that you're above the law?
There was someone who did that, right?
Yeah, of course. He did it in front of the UN conference meeting. Yeah. He got a booklet of all the violations.
Who was it again?
Some Israeli ambassador,
representative had ripped up the international laws.
Yeah, because it's like, imagine like you're in court and be like, here's your serving. You're being sued,
documents,
and then you just shred it. Like, it's like, what now?
I'm hearing stuff like that, and I also am hearing about the Prime Minister admitting that they gave money to Hamas.
Yes.
And that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me that like, because then it's like, are you guys profiting from this? Like, are you profiting from, like, is the goal to get rid of Palestine?
So another fun fact was, remember how I mentioned how the Israeli military defense is super strong, impenetrable, basically. All the barriers have, like, 9, 12 security cameras. So, like, they know in and out what's going in, what's going out. They know if a cockroach crawls through the borders. Those 12 cameras will catch it and identify that cockroach, for example, okay? But you're telling me that on October 7th, when Hamas, who got developed within the siege, and they're doing this attack, which took Israel's military 4 to 8 hours, that to respond to this invasion, right? It kind of, makes you wonder if they're so on top of their surveillance, how do they not know Hamas was, revolting and creating an attack, and they took hours to respond? It kind of makes you want to question and wonder if it was, like, intentional, if they let it happen in order for them to respond, right? Because I did see that, Israel is a defense military, right? So what I learned as well one time in a class is self-defense. But self-defense means that someone needs to attack you for you to react towards that, right?
Well, that's the argument they're doing now, right?
Exactly, yeah. So they're taking that on a larger, nation scale and making that. But the thing is, the relentless bombardments that's been happening in about 3 to 4 weeks, with like over 6,000, maybe 9,000 bombs by now. In comparison, that's more bombs dropped than the Russia versus Ukraine war. Now that I mentioned that as well, just to add to that, the difference between that one is you have Ukraine supported by NATO and the U.S. and everyone else
because they wanted to join,
and wanting to join, and Ukraine has a military, right? It's a military, like Ukrainian military versus Russian military. In this case, you have Israeli military versus civilians with a small group of Hamas, and that's not equivalent enough for them to justify their bombardment. Now, you mentioned as well that one of the things that's been going on and discussing is, well, how would they approach it? How would they respond to this terrorist attack kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, first, let's look at the definition of terrorism, right? The definition, word by word, is the unlawful use of a violence and intimidation, especially against civilian, and the pursuit of a political aim. Now, overall, a terrorist act is inflicting terrorism and feeling terrified as a recipient end, right? Last time I checked, Israelis don't feel that terrified despite them, exploiting it in that regard. The ones who are being terrified are the civilians, going from children to seniors and stuff. Specifically the children. I saw this one video, which I'm sure lots of people have as well, where the kid was just like in the hospital.
Yeah, I saw that.
Pupil completely dilated, and he's just like completely in terror
and in shock too, from the bombings.
And this makes you kind of really wonder, like, this is a child that's like probably less than 2 years old, has seen things so graphic that even us as adults have not seen, and we can't even handle that. And we're able to see it through our phones, and some of us have our stomach quenching and feeling like sick to our stomachs and stuff, and these are actual live kids. Like, this is their reality. They were born into this, they're growing up into this, they're experiencing the destruction, and they have to accept all that. And it's just like, for a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 7-year-old, 11-year-old, whatever the case is, it's just very, very inhumane. And it's just very, very, like, that's why we're trying to make this episode, because we want to speak about that and stuff.
Well, yeah, because people are not, they're not considering the fact that so what I wanted to actually point out about what you just said in terms of whether or not Israelis are in terror, I think it's fair to say that they Israelis are scared of what's like happened, of the attack, because obviously whatever happened October 7th was horrific.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the worst attacks that's happened on Jewish people since obviously the Holocaust.
Yeah, I mean, not on the same scale, obviously.
Not on the same scale,
I think it was,
but
6
it's
million
considered
Jews?
the worst since that has happened. Like, when I say the worst, isn't like, it's not worse than the Holocaust, but since the Holocaust, that's how people are describing it. I know maybe you have a different opinion. That's how it's being described.
Yeah.
So I can understand that they do have fear, especially since I know recently there was like Hamas has stated that they want to get rid of Jewish people.
Yeah.
So of course
they want to get rid of the occupier in this regard,
and the issue with this whole situation that's arising is also the anti-Semitism, because there are people who are saying, even people who are pro-Palestine or or supporting them, or saying they should be free and things like that, and they're saying and there are people like that who are making anti-Semitic remarks, or there's a lot of anti-Semitism coming up because of what the Israeli government is doing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty insane that people are not able to distinguish between Jewish people and what a government body is doing.
Yes,
right?
Exactly,
because you have to make that distinction. You can't just blame the Jewish people for what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Especially since there are Jewish people living in Palestine too.
I was just going to mention as well that the thing is, I think another distinction that people need to separate too is culture and religion.
Exactly.
Right?
That's another
You can be Arab Muslim, you can be Arab Christian, Arab Jew, you can be Russian Jew, Polish Jew.
Yeah.
whatever the case is, your culture is one identity, your religion is another.
And you can be Jewish and have a Christian faith. You have a Jewish background.
Yes,
right?
Yes, exactly.
Because there's a difference between a Jewish background and Jewish, like Judaism.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
So you can see how intricate this all can be. And the thing is, there was a point where all three of the main, three religions were all living in harmony within this, land of Palestine, also known as the Holy Land, as it all derived from there. But now you have this whole, evolution of how everything has evolved and how it's become now. It's just
like this divide because of religion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree and stuff.
Well, I say because of religion. We're going to talk about that.
Now, another thing that's been brought up as well is the claim that because Jews were native to that land, that they deserve the right to come back to that land and just take over because it's rightfully theirs. But the thing is, as we all know, if you buy a house and you bought it from someone and that person moved away, okay, and they live somewhere across the world, now, do you think that's justified for them to just come back, kill you, and then take over that land because it was rightfully theirs to begin with? Like, let's say they built that house, so they have more of a sentimental attachment towards it, right? But they fully sold it to you, or they just fully left, and it's just fully been abandoned. New people come in, they're living there. Now, of course, like I said, like Palestinians, Jews, Christianity, they were all living there as like the Arabs kind of thing, more as so as the Cantan, I believe, or Catan, yeah. It was one of the empires going on and the demographics living way back when. So I don't know dates. I'm not Wikipedia. But yeah, so those were the demographics that were living there.
Dates.
Yeah. Now the main Jews, like I mentioned earlier, they're the migrating tribe, so they have, moved on and explored. While as the ones that did remain, because there was still Jews remaining.
Yeah, they built a civilization. They built homes for themselves.
Those were the Arab Jews that have remained.
Yeah.
And so in that case, they were always living in harmony and in peace and just civilized, despite the differences. Because despite differences, they also had lots in common as well, right? And in this case, the more... the things in common were their stronger morals and values that really aligned them and resonated, which allowed them to live in peace. But because of this whole divide and separation, it's causing that disruption for something that was peaceful once upon a time. And now they're coming back claiming to take the whole land and just pretty much, doing this ethnic cleansing act, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I also just want to clarify as well, I wasn't stating that the Israelis are terrorists. I'm just saying that their acts are terroristics, like it's the
government's
action.
Acts.
Yeah, it's the action, If any person of any background, any identity is inflicting terrorism, their actions are terrorism. So I just want to make that distinction.
Well, because it's important to note, like you said that there is obviously a power difference. There's obviously some kind of oppression. It was obviously some form of oppression towards the Palestinians, and it's shown with what they call the open air prisons. Now I know you wanted to talk about that too, because wording is very important. Now when you say open air prisons,
that's like implying that the 2 million people living in just the Gaza Strip alone are criminals.
Yeah.
That these people who have, by the way, having over 50% of that demographic, so over 1 million of that whole 2 million population is under the age of 18. So it really makes you kind of question and wonder that let's say we split that in half, okay? Are 1 million people who are under the age of 18 criminals for them to be in this prison for this open air?
And I think
we should call it what it is, and it is a concentration camp, which is why I said it was ironic how that the Jews had experienced this with, Nazi Germany back in World War II.
Well, you were telling me about the creation of Hamas and how they were created within those camps.
Yes, because it's been blocked off for decades.
And it's something that people have talked about too, and obviously it's very controversial to talk about, but it should be a discussion, and I think it's important to discuss these things because if you shut people down, then it just allows one narrative to take place or one perspective to take place.
Which is what's really happening too, because why else would they cut off food, water, electricity, fuel, humanitarian aid?
Because It's interesting because like one not solution, but one idea that was from the BASSEM YOUSSEF interview. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna refer to it a lot because I love his perspective.
No, he is great.
Yeah, he's really great.
If you haven't checked it out, go check it out.
Yeah, the idea is that you have this huge military like government,
okay.
like that they obviously have a lot more power than Palestine, right? And so in Palestine they have these civilians that don't have the same power, or not even nearly as close as the same power, not even close, with so much control, because a lot of people don't even seem to realize what is happening in Gaza. What's the fact that there are checkpoints, arbitrary checkpoints that are just created, that they have to walk around with their papers and they could be denied access to areas, and you just don't have the freedom living there as a Palestinian. And they already have that oppression going on, and now on top of
that tyranny oppression.
So
and when we break it down by the definition, the tyranny is cruel and oppressive government or rule, which is exactly what's being exhibited and displayed.
And when you think about it, it is messed up that Israel has so much power over Palestine in that way. They should be able to govern themselves as a country, because that's how it was supposed to be. And I think everyone should agree on the fact that they should have their own autonomy as Palestine, right? Because that's what they had before Israel came in or was created.
Yes, and I was just going to mention that. It shows the very contrast, how the tables have turned in the regards that 75 years ago they came on a boat as pretty much like refugees towards this holy land. They got welcomed, and now they're the occupier, and the native people are a refugee in their own nation.
Exactly.
Like, it took less than 100 years for things to go a 180 degrees, and then now it's being like further exacerbated by these actions and stuff like that.
And so the whole idea was like, what is it that you do in this situation? What is it that what Israeli would do? What would Israel would the idea, I think, it was that Hamas would have never formed if there wasn't oppression in the first place, the argument.
I saw another thing too. They're like, if you want to get rid of Hamas, let Palestine have its own independence and stuff, because like you said, Hamas was created from not having the independence.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like, and again, we're not justifying the creation or the acts of Hamas.
Yeah.
Of course,
we're looking at the bigger picture.
Where the big picture is like when there are these conditions created for people where it's almost not livable. Like and to a certain point, it's not livable for some.
100%. But they have that tolerance, and they just kind of accepted it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, what else can you really do? They don't really have the power. Like, they didn't have the power to fight it, and that's often why rebel groups are created, is because the people feel that they have no voice, they have no power, right? Exactly. So if they feel like they don't have that independence, that's usually why those kind of groups are formed.
Yeah, which just know that it was intentional for that. They want that.
And sorry, Jordan has something to say.
Yeah.
Sorry, real quick. I know you're saying that you're not trying to justify like the creation of Hamas and stuff, right? But when you look at the bigger picture kind of does justify Hamas's existence.
Well, not justify, it explains their existence.
Doesn't it justify until
justifying is saying that Hamas is in the right for what they're doing.
Exactly. Well, they're in the right for existing.
Where their formation and their goal is to destroy the Jewish people.
Right, so I don't think their actions.
That's not a justifiable cause.
Not Jewish. They want to destroy the occupier government rule.
Well, they said they wanted to destroy all Jewish people. That's what they said.
So
okay.
The Hamas are not scholars, okay?
I know, but that's what I'm saying is like I'm not going to be for their statements or their goal or whatever but. It is understandable that under those conditions, there would be some rebel group that's formed because they feel they have no power, right? So, but like, and that's the thing. That's why I say this is complicated because, I can't, like, do you condemn Hamas? That's what we're going to say. We're going to go there. What were you going to say?
You condemn Hamas? It's like, well, maybe not condemn them, but condemn their actions. Like, you guys should, I think they should exist. I just think they should use their existence differently.
Well,
the thing is, you'll be kind of limited as well with what you can do, right? Because if you've already been under oppression, now, as we know, they were derived, became official in like 2005, 6, 7.
Yeah.
And so from then until 2023, you had like at least a decade more to go about things differently or whatever the case was, right? But as you know, like Hamas is limited to what they can do. As mentioned earlier, they can't just easily bring weapons to their favor and desire, right? You have airports, land, and seaports all controlled and regulated from Israeli government, right? You have everything else being controlled. Like if you look at the rocket and missile comparison, a Hamas rocket can maybe blow up a car. You have an Israeli missile that blows up a hospital in an instant. Like you blink and 500 are dead instantaneously. And the comparison is just not equivalent in that regard. And again, like whether Hamas came up or some other group came up, whatever the case is, the idea and concept is the resistance group is going to get formed based on this tyranny oppression.
Yeah,
regardless of where it is, whether it's in jail, whether it's anywhere else, and anywhere else around the world, if there's an oppression happening. And you mentioned as well, actually, in the Holocaust, there was an
uprising and rebels
from the Jews,
from the ghettos, and it was not just Jewish people, because in Poland there was an uprising with the Polish people because they were under oppressive rule by Nazis, right? So there were children who had guns who were fighting against the Nazis, and they would have been considered terrorists, right? Because at the time they were occupied by Germany and they were going against their government, their new government, their occupiers. So that could have been considered a terrorist group, right? Because they were but that's the thing, is like you look at the definition of terrorism, we're talking about that. But you also have to look at the whole picture, at the root causes of it, and what caused this group to be created.
Correct.
What was the background behind it, and what is the solution? Like the solution is definitely not what they're doing right now, where they're relentlessly bombing civilians.
The whole point
because the whole idea is like they've been doing this for decades. They've been randomly bombing Palestine for decades. Even like I'm pretty sure they were doing even before Hamas.
Oh, way before.
I was seeing like videos of bombings like before I even knew Hamas existed.
Yep. You also have them bombarding parts of Syria. There's a little border that they're trying to, claim the land, and they're both kind of having that war. You have Lebanon in the north that they're kind of bombing. You have the West Bank, which we all know has zero Hamas, because Hamas only derived and got created within the Gaza Strip. And the West Bank has zero Hamas, and yet they're still bombarding. So what's their excuse to justify their actions in that regard too, right?
Did you have something?
I hope that answered your question, by the way. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think it's good also to talk about like the meaning of what we mean by justify too, because like justifying is like literally saying they were right for what they did. They had a right to do that. But we're not necessarily saying that. We're just explaining like this is probably why. This might be the reason.
It's kind of like it's an inevitable. Got it.
Inevitable.
An outcome, right?
Yeah.
Regardless if they came out and they did the attack on October 7th, whether they did it on, like January 1st of 2027, regardless of what the timeline is, it's the fact that they're going to come out and revolt, because that's when they had enough, right? Everyone has their own tolerance of what they can handle. Some people may, maybe some other scenario, if they got derived and developed in 2007, whatever the year was, their tolerance could have been 3 years, right? But they had, I guess like 15 years of tolerance until they had enough, and enough was enough for them.
Yeah.
And because at that point they couldn't take it anymore. If you're living in poverty and you're living under this oppression, and you just kind of feel like a prison mate inside this concentration camp, Like, you're gonna...
And the question is like, why were they there to begin with? Like, why were those camps created to begin with?
Right.
Like why was it in this stage? Why weren't they? Because it's not the case that it was just like it was like Palestine was just up and running on their own, had their government, everything was fine. It was like these were problems that were ongoing for so long. So like you said, it's an outcome of what happened. But you wanted to talk about the whole scapegoat thing too.
Yes.
I remember that.
So going back, we can see that a lot of the I'm just using the word justification based on like the media. So
maybe a lot of like you can say points.
Yes.
Maybe the
okay.
points.
Or argument, I guess.
Yeah.
So, as we all know, Israel has cut off complete access to water, food, electricity, fuel, humanitarian aid, and now more recently, more afterwards, whatever, they cut off the internet. So they're doing this to obviously promote their propaganda. So they're in control of the narrative on both sides of the party, right? Where they're kind of stating all the facts and all the arguments for what they're doing. Now, one of the falsely arguments that they're using is that, oh, we're bombing the school or mosque or church or refugee campsite or the UN sightings or whatever the case was. It's because they believe that Hamas is there and they're intentionally using them as human shields. So from that perspective, they're pretty much saying that, oh, we're taking your taunt and provocation and we're gonna call you up and send missiles there and hopefully that we get you, kind of thing, right? Based on this hunch or this intel, if you will.
Yeah.
But the thing is, essentially that's just a scapegoat. So scapegoat essentially by definition is a person who is blamed for the wrongdoings, mistakes, or faults of others for the reasons of expediency.
Expediency?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Expediency. Expedia. No.
Oh my God.
So the thing is, like, that's the whole idea of a scapegoat. It's just the fact that you're using another excuse as reasoning to justify your wrongdoings.
Yeah. So are you? So I feel like you were gonna go about with Palestine. That were they're being used as the scapegoats?
No, I'm saying Israel is labeling their actions as a scapegoat towards like. Right, because it's a person who is blamed, like they're blamed, right? So,
but Israel is blaming Palestine or Hamas as the scapegoat. Is that what you're trying to say? So what you were trying to say, is that Hamas has become kind of the scapegoat in a way, or
yes,
because
exactly.
Israel is using that as justifying the Israeli government is using that as justification for them bombing civilians. So that was the point you're trying to make.
Exactly.
Because it kind of it's.
But it's not valid because the thing is like Hamas is not there. And remember, as I mentioned earlier with the numbers, after 9,000 kills, only 13 members of Hamas have actually died or been deceased.
They're just decimating the population.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, they have no holdback. They're not holding back by any means. You have ceasefires being, called upon them. The Prime Minister of Israel is rejecting a ceasefire or humanitarian pause. They have no reason, they have no intentions to. In their mind, they want to get rid of every single civilian there. Now, we all know that there were some hostages that were kept by the Hamas. And now, normally you would want to think that, you're one of the strongest militaries. You have this organizations that, caused an attack on you, on your nation on October 7th, and they've taken hostages. Mm-hmm. So you to react to that should be to prioritize those hostages for their safety, but also getting rid of the organization. Yeah. But in this case, there's no strategy with that. If you're just bombarding all these locations, all these areas,
everyone's just going to be killed.
Everyone's being killed in all these locations. And not even considering your own hostages that you care so much about to save. That just kind of speaks volumes in itself as well. That it kind of makes you look at the bigger picture from all this.
Well, here's what confuses me, and I actually had this conversation with Jacques. It's like when a government or military find out that, or they know that there are terrorists, or they find out that there's a terrorist organization in the general area. Is it not typical for them to move in to get intel first before they just start bombing?
Of course.
Because that's what confuses me about this. Because it's like, okay, are they actually getting intel about where to bomb? Or are they just blindly going in?
You know what, to be honest?
Because it kind of seems like it doesn't make sense, where they are bombing to me from what I've seen and what I've learned.
Yeah,
right?
There is no consistent strategy or
pattern with it. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there is.
Which adds back to them violating those UN laws, right? Because they need to have more accurate, sourceful
It's a different story if, they say we have, information that the majority of this group is in this like location.
Yeah.
But it's kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
How this is going.
I saw this one example of a comparison by analogy wise, right? So it's like I think it was BASSEM YOUSSEF that actually mentioned it.
He's great.
Where he mentions how if a person in America and there's a guy with a weapon and he's inside the school and he's gonna inflict terrorism or do some harm or has someone as a hostage, should the government respond by blowing up that whole school? That's the whole
Jordan
idea.
says yes.
Are you playing devil's advocate?
Quiet you. You don't have a mic.
Cancel.
You're canceled. Goodbye.
But that's the whole idea, right? So
yeah, because that's my thought process too.
When you look at it from a small scale, it makes more sense. But that's why on a larger scale, it should also make sense there as well. But it's not, because the proper approach is not the approach that they're currently doing, and they're just relentless with this bombardment and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it needs at some point it needs to stop. You're not getting anywhere with it. You really you're just blowing everybody up.
But being completely honest, right now, what they've done, it's pretty much at the point of no return, and they just completely fucked themselves over. The Israeli government being, in case that wasn't articulate. And as the expression goes, digging your own grave. Well, let's just say they dug their own cemetery by this point, based on the repercussions that's going to be happening from all this once it unfolds. Because it really is and stuff.
I don't know about that though.
Ooh,
because
tea?
yeah.
You become a meme?
No, because because we were talking about this. How America gave them like $100 billion check.
Oh, which I love in that headline.
So they gave them like $100 billion to help them with
supposedly Israel and Ukraine.
Yeah, and so it's like and then I think you were telling me, and I even saw some memes about this, that Americans are now waking up to you have $100 billion to give Israel to commit war crimes, but you don't have $100 billion for our health care and our food and our security,
our homelessness,
and our schools and everything, and they're having a huge issue there. And so,
especially because they're tax dollars that's kind of going there, right? So it's like no one would want that. The whole point of them paying taxes is for them to feel the benefit, because it goes back to them.
It's like you should be like figuring out what's going on with your own people as well. But I don't know, and I don't think America has called for a ceasefire, right?
Apparently
they haven't. I don't know if they have recently, but
the guy's name was Blinken. I think he told
Who's that?
Someone's name. He was telling the Prime Minister of Israel, I refuse to say his name, to have a ceasefire, and he just completely rejected that.
Oh.
Like he does not care. Like he just wants to just go, because at first they did not, like when Joe Biden flew into Israel, he did not say to have a ceasefire.
Yeah.
But based on more leaders around the world making more actions on their own about this whole situation, like I said, it's affecting everyone globally, right? So whether it affects you directly or indirectly, you're being affected, and that's why they're taking a stance on it as well. And I think the U.S. is starting to realize that, because that still more directly affects them from all the relations and what they're having with all these nations around the world. You also have things like Turkey and Israel, because Turkey wants to support Palestine, Gaza, and that's against Israel. But Israel and Turkey are both part of NATO, and as NATO members, there's a rule that you cannot have a fight with one another.
Oh.
So that's causing,
some tension,
stirring. Yeah, it's just kind of like it's a very big tension that's just willing to. That's about to kind of like burst, kind of like a volcano, right?
Yeah.
And funny enough, like that's how you kind of look at it as well. Like if this situation happened like a year ago, the whole oppression thing, it'd be on a complete different scale. But because it's been like 70 plus years, now you're at that breaking point, you're at that explosion point, you're at that point where this is going to turn to pretty much like World War III or something. That doesn't have to be, obviously, but at the rate that they're going, it's kind of like almost inevitable by this point as well.
Well, speaking of what's going on in other countries too, you sent me that video about the protests here in Toronto.
Yes.
And we had a discussion about that actually. Because it's pretty crazy. Like we were actually talking about this and it you know, it's gonna kind of veer off a little to like Canadian politics, tiny bit, just a tiny bit, because
a little tangent,
a little bit, because I think it is important for us to discuss, especially since we live here.
Yeah.
So there were protests in Toronto that were like about, you know, free Palestine and things like that, and it's been going on around the world. But the fact that it was happening in Toronto and this happened was wild to me, that police charged in pointing their guns at people who were protesting.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is when there was the Russia-Ukraine war, or there still is, but when it began, then there were protests here and none of that happened. And, you know, and it brought on the discussion about the way people react depending on who is affected, right? Because, you know, I was actually seeing people on the news saying these things, and I told ZEE, I was like, when, you know, there were the bombings in Ukraine and the children, there was literally a woman on the news who said, you know, this is different. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but she was saying, like, the reason that it affected her was along the lines of, these kids have blonde hair and blue eyes and look like us, you know, and that's why it, like, and they're using that as the reason that it affects them more, which is nuts to me, because I'm like, a child is a child. It shouldn't be the case that this,
on their
you know, their
appearance,
ethnicity or how they look. Like, if I see a child of any race or background suffering, it's gonna hurt me, because I feel like it's human to feel that way towards any other human being, right? And so when I'm seeing the way that they're reacting to protesters who are like free Palestine versus talking about, you know, Ukraine should be independent, why is there that difference? Why are people being so like xenophobic about this, or you know,
but like the double standard kind of thing.
The double standard.
To also add to your point, so remember how we mentioned earlier how the Jews were treated as dehumanized?
Yes.
So that statement from that lady shows the humanization of the Ukrainians, where they made it more personal and relatable for them to feel more empathetic and sympathy towards this demographic. But then when you look at another demographic, you have that barrier to kind of have them dehumanized in that way to make it less hurtful and less guilty for them to, you know.
And for a long time, and it still goes on, and it's been going on, maybe even before 9/11, there's the whole idea of Arabs are terrorists. That's been like, that's a statement that people have made, and that you know, it's been like a prejudicial idea. And so, you know,
I also want to add and clarify, I think that's more for Western and maybe even Europeans, just because of the similarities.
I mean,
I don't know about the Asian nations, African nations, South American nations.
I guess I'm saying, like, because we're talking about what's happening, like the protests here. So it's like, obviously you're in the West. That seems to be the idea. And the thing is, the reason I say it's going to kind of go into Canadian politics is it reminds me of the trucker
convoy.
What was it? The trucker protest. So that whole protest, I understand, like, there were disruptions and things, and they were saying there was some like issues with it. But generally, they were, as far as I understand, they were peacefully protesting, but they had their bank accounts locked and shut down. There were like all these repercussions to them protesting. They were like, you know, Trudeau used the Emergency Act to basically shut them down. And so now I'm seeing these protests where police are coming in with guns. And it's starting to make you think, is there like an agenda in Canada now to shut us up? Like, because that's what it's starting to feel like. Which is also
interesting too, because
with the new act for like news, world news, we don't have access to it on social media. Like, what is happening?
You also have the U.S. is trying to ban protests. You had French trying to ban protests. You also have them banning protests specifically for Palestine, because.
And you can't even post a flag.
I was literally.
Oh, sorry.
I'll
let you go.
But to this day, you'll still see people waving their Ukrainian flags on cars, whether they are native Ukrainians or just Ukrainian supporters. No one will ever say anything about their flag, you know, regardless of what date it is. What is going on, even if the war stopped.
People are very supportive.
People are very supportive.
Which is great. Obviously, that's great. But
now when people want to be supportive for Palestine,
they're not allowing
it. Exactly. And I think that in itself speaks volumes. It shows the higher picture, the higher agenda, the higher things that's going on behind the curtains, behind the background, that we don't necessarily know or have access to. But we need to see that, you know, it's a truth that's being silenced. It's a truth that's being...
like suppressed. Right?
Suppress, yeah, thank you.
Well, there is this fear, and I've heard people talk about where they feel like if they support Palestine, they're called anti-Semitic, like that they automatically.
But see, that's a fallacy because you're playing.
Right? I know.
You're making that.
It's like a straw man argument. It's like you're basically you're saying a point they never made.
Exactly.
They're saying free Palestine. They never said I hate Jewish people. Like,
exactly.
You know, but a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people have that fear. They have that fear that if they're going to be supporting Palestine, they're going to be seen as anti-Semitic.
I'm sorry, but
which is silly, but
in this reality, that's not the case. You know, if someone wants to have that illusion and that false perception,
a lot of people
that doesn't just because.
But there are people who say these things, right?
Just because they say, I could say I'm a pink elephant, doesn't mean I am a pink elephant. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, they're just words. Like, you give it more meaning when you solidify it.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, like, it's important to say what people are saying because these people are usually the loudest online and out. Like, these are the people who are making these statements that are...
Those keyboard warriors?
Keyboard warriors that are getting thousands of comments and likes.
Oh my gosh.
You know, that drives me nuts when I see, like... I see a comment that's super messed up or bigoted or, you know, racist, and you have like 1,000 likes. I'm like, who are you people?
Those are bots, okay? They paid them. They paid for those likes.
I hope they're bots. But that actually leads into another thing I was going to say.
The propaganda.
The propaganda, but also there's another point that actually my hairstylist made, which I thought was very interesting. I did want to bring it up.
Yeah, for sure.
So you know how there are deep fakes?
Who?
Deep fakes. You know what deep fakes are? So it's essentially like an AI-generated video of a person that looks so real. Like it looks like an actual video of a person. So people can fake a video of Barack Obama saying like F you, you know, or something.
Yeah.
And it looks and sounds and exactly like him. It doesn't look like, you know, a cartoon. It looks like a real video.
This is a new Black Mirror episode.
Yes,
unraveling.
But I think it's important to talk about because we were talking about how the reason that this whole event is like unprecedented is because of technology. So when World War II happened, we didn't have TikTok. We didn't have people in Palestine posting videos or sending videos from their phones.
Instantaneously,
like
too.
Instantaneously posting. We have access to video footage and sound we've never had before, but at the same time, we also have access to these propaganda, fake videos, deep fakes, things like that.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, that could be posted and that could
manipulated.
very easily be used as a manipulation tactic. So then there comes the question of how much of what we are seeing and what we are learning is actually real.
Yeah, which is also very true too, which is why there's some cases that they're able to have that technology as well to debunk the deep fakes. And
that's true.
AIs
but it's a lot. It's like a lot.
It is for sure. I mean, there's so much to like unravel and so much to learn and to kind of really distinguish, and that's why, you know, it's very important for everyone to do their research on their own.
Yeah.
To really dig into it, to really dive into it. For those who are interested in stuff like that, but be interested for your own self. Don't be interested just to have an argument with someone across the street.
Even if you are not interested, if you see something online, I feel like
question it. You know, at least question it. Yeah.
Always be repetitively explained to children in schools and people like in general that you can't automatically assume this is the truth that you're seeing.
Like you just accept that face value. Like don't. Like, it's really important. You should always be
like take everything with a grain of salt that you see online, no matter like because I feel like, you know, there are obviously ways to find out if something has been peer reviewed and researched and have multiple eyes and hands in this entire thing. So there's ways to do that. But when you're on social media, the way I see it is almost like a blueprint. It's like this is your starting point.
Yeah.
You see the information. Now go find out if that's actually true. And like do your research. Because I think that's a big problem with the internet right now is a lot of people, we're so used to using it for everything and Googling everything that a lot of people, I think, don't really understand that. I think that they just take it at face value and then they spread that misinformation, you know?
Yeah, and to those that know this tactic of human abilities, is they use it to their advantage as well, where they like to spread those propaganda and misleading information intentionally for it to spread like wildfire because it amplifies their cause, right?
And we should probably define propaganda too. We were gonna do that because we keep saying propaganda, but some people don't know what that actually is.
Yeah. So do you want to read the definition?
Sure. So what it is it's information that is especially of a biased or a misleading nature, and it's used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Right. So
in translation.
So there were actually, I'll give an example of propaganda in World War II. Now, when I'm sure people know The Pianist. Right, that's like a very famous movie and book. It's an autobiography. It's about.
I haven't seen it.
You should watch it. It's a really, really good depiction of what happened in Poland during World War II. Because the pianist, holy shit, he went through so much. He was a famous pianist there, and I don't know if it was just Poland, but in Europe, a lot of people knew him. He played piano on the radio, and he was Jewish, and so with. The Pianist, I watched the movie and it affected me so much, especially being Polish, that I read the book, and the book has a lot more to it that baby cried, dude. Like, it's a good book. I like inhaled that book.
Got it.
It's really good, especially because it's an autobiography, so it was all exactly like, because
from his point of view.
He said that he wrote the book like a few days after the war ended. He sat down, he wrote everything, like, to make sure he didn't forget, because it was like
smart man.
Because so much happened that was insane, right?
He needed to dump it from his mind. Yeah, he needed
to just like put it all down, so that also like later he would, because you forget details, you forget information, but it was so fresh in his mind.
Which is very key.
Yeah, and so one of the pieces of propaganda, and one of the reasons he didn't leave Warsaw when they started doing all the... Sorry, I'm going to burp.
Pat you on the back.
Oh, that actually worked. That actually worked.
Never fails.
So one of the reasons a lot of Polish people didn't leave, like, part of the reason they were like, this is my home, I'm not leaving, right? Because a lot of people were warning Jewish, Polish, like, you should leave. They're saying that they're going to put us in, like, these ghettos, take us from our homes. But a part of the reason was the propaganda. So one of the pamphlets that the pianist, his name was Władysław. Wow.
Nice name.
He or they call him Władek. He saw a pamphlet that literally said German soldiers had paper shoes and paper clothes. How are they going to win the war? And it was saying things like that. And the thing is back then they believed it, because these were like newspapers. They were like, this is a credible source, and it was hard to fact check that stuff back then. So they genuinely believed, oh, these German soldiers useless. They're gonna come in here. We're gonna destroy them. And it was like the extreme opposite. Like, they came in with tanks that could destroy like 5 of your tanks and shit like that.
So the Germans made that pamphlet.
No, it was within Poland.
Oh,
it was within Poland.
They were getting the threat, and they didn't take it seriously.
Because what they wanted was, they didn't want all the men fleeing to avoid fighting. They wanted the men to fight on the front lines. So because
in order to give them that morale,
if everyone fled, then obviously they would be taken over. Military. They had no people, so they were spreading propaganda to encourage people to stay. But as a result, when they were taken over, then a lot of Jewish people who didn't flee ended up being trapped and exterminated. It was horrible. So, but that's a good example of propaganda. It's like stuff like that. And obviously nowadays it's hard to get away with something as extreme as that.
Correct.
But it also depends on the country. Some countries are very restricted in their information, like North Korea. So they actually are fed a lot of information that's not true. Like, they actually genuinely believe that their leader can read their minds and things like that. Yeah. They're so like brainwashed because they don't have access to information outside of that. They're only shown what the government allows them to see.
And so by default, they kind of have to accept it more than question it, because they
how
can't
can you
really
question
debunk
it? You don't have access to any other information.
Fun fact, since you said North Korea under your breath, they actually are on this, like, North Korea, the whole dictator, like whatever other political terms you want to use. They're on the side with Gaza, so take that in as well, right?
Oh,
like that's the thing.
Wild.
You have pretty much Russia, China, and North Korea.
They're on Gaza's side.
Yeah. Because
that's also like a little sus.
But it's also just interesting because it also just shows that they're on the side with humanity, despite the images and.
But that's kind of wild, yeah. Because it's not.
This war has really opened a lot of people's eyes in many, many ways on different levels, based on everything that's
like
going
religion?
on, because
you're
gonna kind of see, because I think of this as well.
Yeah. But I think, do you want to talk about that, because I feel like that was an important point.
Yeah. So another important thing to mention from this whole situation is, what's the goal? What's the agenda? What's the overall gain? What's important for them to take this land? Why can't they just let them live in peace, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Regardless with the, have them their own political independence, kind of thing, right? Have their own Palestinian state with West Bank and the Gaza as it is. If the case was like, as the worst case, it's better than having the oppression, the tyranny, the control, and everything else. One article I was reading and seeing was that they wanted to take that land because, and it's very important for them because it connects from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, and that allows, like, obviously we all know the Suez Canal, and we all seen the news headlines when one ship got stuck diagonally on the Suez Canal and how it disrupted everything. Not just to mention that, but also the Suez Canal generates about $8 billion towards the Egyptians, like for Egypt, just for that one canal strip, right?
Yeah.
So with them taking over Gaza, they're able to make a secondary alternative route from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, which will allow shipments to essentially bypass the Suez Canal, but also generate that revenue towards Israel. And just a general rule as well for millionaires and billionaires and stuff like that is, what I've noticed is that they will never invest money towards a project or plan without considering the return at least double. Okay, so if U.S. is gonna invest or donate or give, $100 billion towards Israel, or again between Israel and Ukraine, but they're giving X amount towards Israel, they're not gonna just give it just like that without expecting them to gain more. So because if they take over more land, then they're able to just build buildings and infrastructure on it, just to generate that money back. You had a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So that's why I'm thinking like that's another important thing to consider. That's another reason why they want the land, right? Like, sure, you want the Holy Land because it's
to have the access to the canal, right?
Exactly. Because if they wanted the Holy Land as it was rightfully theirs, well, they got it. Like, if you look at the
aren't they still
timeline
fighting over Jerusalem? Isn't that still like a question?
Jerusalem is like technically like entirely of Israel, but West Bank still has access to it because people live in the West Bank, but they work in Jerusalem, so they need to have that access point, and they're going through identifications.
But I've also heard that
like that.
they're very restricted. Like, it's very hard to get into Jerusalem if you're Palestinian.
For sure, they made it as hard as they can be, right? And for them to just in general, it just made it very, very difficult and challenging.
Yeah.
But that's one of the goals that that they want, the full land. You also have parts of Syria and the southwest where it wasn't even Palestine or Israel, but it was actually Syria, and it just kind of took over. You can kind of see a shadow when you look at the maps. And eventually, like, they're having the military base in the Middle East, and America and Israel or Israel likes to promote democracy and promoting this democratic kind of political agenda as well. So for them, it's like, I believe that it's going to start off with Palestine until they take 100% of the land, until they start spreading to other nearby nations, however way they want to go about it, right? Now, if they wanted, like, because if you also look at it, if they also wanted entirely Palestine, they would not have bombed the crossing to Egypt, the Rafah crossing, which is entirely Egypt and Palestine or Gaza, but yet Israel still has control over that.
Yeah.
That also kind of really shows that, and they should have allowed them to go through if they wanted to leave. Now, there are obviously some Palestinians in Gaza that were stubborn and did not want to leave, which makes sense for them because it is like their land, it's their home. Like, why would you want to leave just because a bully kind of comes into your neighborhood and is kind of forcing you out? Like, why would you? You have your own rights and your own rights to stay in that land.
Well, one thing that I was going to bring up, because like you wanted to talk about the whole finger pointing thing, actually. Sorry, I feel like this is sort of really, but I was just thinking I was just kind of thinking about oh my god, what was it? A lot of statements I have heard was like, oh well, Palestine was given a choice for peace and they refused, or things like that. Yeah, so and they're saying it almost as if they're trying to say that what's happening to them is like they asked for it, or they deserve it because they refused any peace talks. But as far as I understand, it wasn't really much of that. Like, it's not like Israel was saying you're going to be an independent state, from what I understand.
Which is why they rejected that, because it's like they claim it as peace, but it's not actually peace if you look at it as well.
It's like
right?
it was more of like, it sounded more of like a give us what
contract.
we want and we won't hurt you or won't harm you or something. I don't know.
Who's gonna, like, what would stop, like, what would allow them to back up their words? They created that, right? So they can create the peace treaty. And that
also brings up
and
the
then they can
history.
and they can just massacre them. They can just throw the bombs.
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
That also
like,
goes back to the whole history, right? Because, like, Israel has shown many times that they're not going to just give Palestinians what they want or their freedom. Why would they? Because they have so much control.
Yeah.
So why would they give them anything? Especially because they have the power and Palestine doesn't. You know, and it kind of.
But the power doesn't stop there. They have a sense of greed, so they want the more power, more power. Greed is also one of the 7 deadly sins and stuff like that, right? So, not the enemy.
Yeah, but it's the thing with governments in any country, it always comes down to that. It always comes down to money and prosperity and power, right? Mm-hmm. And like they want to have this convenience of, like, obviously the ports or the canals or the the regions to make more money. Like, of course people want that, but the way that they're going about it is not the way that it was supposed to happen from the beginning, right? So I don't know. It's the issue I find with people is when they keep pointing the finger back and forth, saying that, like, look at what they did and look at what they did, as if it's a justification for what's happening right now, which there is no justification for, like, relentless bombing.
I love that you bring that up, because you kind of see headlines being like, well, Hamas did this and Hamas did that and they did this. But if you guys look at it, I guess I can do this finger. Is when you have one finger pointing outwards, you actually have 3 pointing back to you. Hey. And this is actually a psychological tactic known as projective identification, which is a psychological defense mechanism in which the individual projects qualities that are unacceptable to the self onto another person. So again, one finger pointing, so it's like you did this, but they're actually and accusing that person, but they're actually referring to themselves, and that's just
like
a psychological.
Projection.
Yeah, but and also indirectly, it's also gaslighting too.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the most people that really do exhibit this and display this are narcissists. Yes? Question?
Yeah, I don't think that's an accurate statement.
Okay. What isn't?
Yeah, I don't have fingers pointing back at me.
Sorry, what's not an accurate statement?
When you have one finger pointing, you have 3 pointing back. Well, it depends on how you curl your fingers when you.
Jordan, stop doing that. It's a metaphor.
I know, but it's wrong.
Relax.
It's wrong.
It's not. This is how I point.
This is how I point.
That's nice for you. But no one said Jordan's pointing finger.
But you're doing like a fist point though. Like you're doing like a fist point.
That's how I point.
Who does that? Who does that?
They're not. They're pointing at Jacques if I'm pointing this way.
Okay.
Jordan.
Regardless.
Jordan, we don't need your comments right now.
I'm just saying. It's
no.
Like, I get the
inaccurate to you, but we're not talking about you.
I'll clarify. Okay. Some people have deformed fingers, so it may not apply to them. But
sorry, we didn't consider the disabled, but yeah.
But it's just the principle overall that the tactic is that people projectile their accusations towards a demographic when they're actually talking about themselves, but they're putting the spotlight onto someone else. And that's a very, big distinction to realize, because we can all experience this, and maybe some of us have experienced it. I know I have, where people are projecting things onto you, blaming you when it's actually their actions that they're doing and stuff like that.
That caused it to happen, right?
Exactly.
You know what's funny, actually?
Gaslighting.
Just reminds me of my mom when she literally cried over spilled milk, and my brother will never let her live it down because she spilled milk in the kitchen.
Oh, it was like, I thought it was like a metaphor. Like,
no, I said literally spilled milk. And we used to joke that she literally cries over spilled milk because she started crying and she yelled at me and my brother, who were outside of the room, being like, "You made me spill the milk." And I was like, what?
Yeah,
we were doing nothing.
You were outside the premises.
We were just sitting there, like, chilling, and she was, like, yelling their names, being like, you made me spill the milk, and I was like, what?
But you see how, so that's another big example as well,
It's just like a silly example, but it's something that often happens in people's daily lives.
Yeah. Now, I know that this was a very deep and intense and heavy discussion with us all, but in hindsight, I did start to realize as well that despite a lot of Palestinians dying from all this, I did have noticed from comments and other videos that people have been learning more about Islam. They piqued the interest of the Quran. And a lot of them, even Muslims themselves, have been practicing more with it, with the more readings and prayers. I found that really, kind of heartwarming and heartfelt kind of thing, because it shows that, a lot of Muslims have died, but now you kind of have a new uprising of Muslims who are non-Arab, right? More specifically of all kind of cultures and stuff like that.
Yeah, just people it's piquing their curiosity about the religion.
And I noticed that the reason why they had this peak of interest, because a lot of the comments too would say, oh, I picked up the Quran I had on my shelf from 2 years ago, 5 years ago. I just bought one yesterday. I bought one 2 months ago and I just started reading it now. Was because they were realizing the faith that the Palestinians had, because despite them being bombarded, despite their families being decimated, despite, everything that they own and have, their homes, your room, all your sentimental values and memories that you cherish, just completely gone, yet they still have the belief and power that God is still above, right? So as powerful as the Israeli military has bombarded the Gaza Strip, they still believe that God is still way more powerful and will provide proper justice towards those who have done them wrong. And some people, viewing all this cannot really conceptualize why they have such strong faith towards, a God, when everything has been destroyed from them, right? So if you relate it here, imagine if your home got destroyed and bombed, and then someone's like, believe in the Lord, believe in God, and do this, you're gonna you're gonna, with so much anger, you're gonna like, the hell with that kind of thing, right? But because the Palestinians have a stronger and a different kind of faith.
Some people do though. Just saying.
I know,
but some people do turn to it.
Like whatever the case, right? Like even small scale, like a car accident or something. So I found that really, really fascinating to see that despite all the negativity and darkness and everything that's derived from this world, there's still an immense amount of people that is like kind of converting or piquing their interest. But obviously the other thing too is just seeing everyone coming together all around the world in support, right? Because not every protest and rally is of just pure Palestinians or just pure Arab. It's the most multicultural, right? You have the UK that's having, I think the most recent one, they had 500,000 along the bridge of London and stuff like that, which is, I found, 500,000 people protesting for Palestine, right? Like that's crazy, that's insane, right? Like when they were at 300,000, they said it was one of the top 10 biggest UK marches they've ever had in their existence. Oh wow! So, and that was like a couple weeks ago. So now they're probably at 500,000. That probably is hitting the number one most protesters and stuff like that, right? So it's very interesting and nice to kind of see everyone coming together and essentially being the voice of the voiceless people in Palestine, because all communication has been cut off. So now the whole world is becoming their voice. And it kind of shows that there is really good humans and humanity out there around this world, despite what you're exposed to. You can be exposed to only negativity and blame the world, or you can be exposed to positivity and see the light in the world as well.
Well, that's another thing too, is like, we were gonna you were talking about like Islam and the Quran and everything, and I was talking to Z about this like off the podcast about how it's nice too, because for so many years Muslims have been like, what's the word, like there's been a lot of prejudice towards Muslims.
They've been tainted, like the image and the illustrations. And
they've been seen as in such a negative light, and so many people have seen them in a negative light. And it's good that, like, I think it's good that people want to learn about what this is all about, rather than just like sticking with their ignorant prejudices towards them, right?
Because knowledge is power. So having that knowledge from a religious book or just in general benefits oneself more.
for a long time, like, Palestinians didn't have a voice, and a lot of the media and a lot of the information was given from the Israeli point of view, right? So
it still is and stuff.
Yeah,
and they're still losing.
They're still trying,
yeah,
and I think that
how desperate they are. Oh my God. Sorry, I'm not gonna pop up again.
Don't do this. But anyways,
I'll just sip my drink.
So it's I think it's nice, and a lot of people are happy that they feel that they're being heard now, their side of the story, right? Because that's important. It's always important to see.
But they don't know that we're voicing for them because they don't have access to anything.
Right now, yeah, but right now, I mean, before, like, I think I don't know if they knew actually even before it was all cut off. Because it's only been the last, week and a half.
I mean,
now?
there are some people that are posting, so you have, like, certain press, like the Motez and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, which I also wanted to mention, I absolutely love TikTok for that, because lately it has become the most reliable source of information.
Crazy, actually.
Yeah, exactly, because anyone can just record themselves and start posting, and it's like, the way they explain, exemplify, they mention their background, their nature, and everything like that.
Yeah.
While as with the news media, you can never trust them, because you ever see that video where they all, like, it's like it starts with one video and then it starts into like 200 and they're all repeating the exact same script.
Oh, I've seen that.
Verbatimly.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't, I'm just like,
crazy.
if that's not an eye-opener, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's I mean, like, that could be a number of things, but we won't go there.
For sure.
Yeah, but one thing that I don't know if you want to really debate this right now. It was like
we can make it like a teaser trailer for the next one.
Teaser trailer. Maybe we'll talk about next one, because it kind of led to this discussion about, I think you were talking about if everyone was an atheist, for example, versus what was going with I don't know. I won't say what you said. I'll just say that it kind of led to this, like, concept of, like, would the world be better with or without religion? And would people be better with or without religion? So I don't know if we're going to get into if we have time to get into it now, because we're so focused on this topic.
Yeah, I think we can save it for the next one. But essentially what I was saying was that, because we were discussing that, as a lot of us all know, a lot of times wars are derived from religion and stuff like that, being exacerbated in certain regards.
Yeah.
In this case, it's not necessarily about religion, but it can be about religion, because there is a difference of religion, values and stuff like that, right? Yeah. From Judaism, Zionist, and Islam kind of thing. Now,
well, Zionism is not really religious. Yeah, but Judaism and Islam.
But
yeah,
skip. Okay.
Yeah.
So my whole thing was, if we eliminated religion of all kinds, would there still be wars? Would there still be conflict? Would there still be negativity?
Would there still be moral compasses?
So if no one believed in religion or God, and if everyone by default, so in this case 8 billion people are default, I guess, in a sense, atheists, because there's no religion, there's no God, there's no belief of that, I don't believe that the world would be a better place. I believe it would be more in a negative direction because of that structural thing, which I love, and that's the whole point of this, question, because it's a very deep question.
It is,
and it requires you to have a deep thinking. So I feel
I think we both have we both have opposing views. I think personally, because
I just stated my statement.
I know you haven't heard mine yet.
I mean, mine's just like mine's just kind of like my overall kind of like outtake on it when you look at the grand scheme and overall picture. Yeah. I'm not necessarily right, I'm not necessarily wrong. It's not the case because it's very hypothetical, but it's still nice to kind of question it and to think about it as well.
Yeah, so we'll talk about it in the next episode, but I think right now I am exhausted from this discussion because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're going to do our trivia.
Yeah, so we're going to do our
anime trivia.
We're going to see who knows more than the other, because I know Z doesn't watch a lot of anime, and my anime is like weird, so we'll see how that goes.
Stay tuned for that.
All right, so this is the trivia portion of B to Z. We're going to be doing anime trivia. Now, I am the type that watches a lot of weird, obscure anime, and I watched a lot when I was younger, but not a lot of newer stuff. And you
I've watched the most popular ones, like generally like Naruto, Death Note, Soul Eater. There's a bunch of other popular ones too, and some minor ones that have smaller seasons. So this is gonna be an interesting little trivia for both of us.
Yeah, we're gonna see. It might be too easy. If it's too easy, we have a harder one we're gonna try. But the way that this is gonna work is that we're using the cancel buzzer for this, and it's not gonna mean cancellation when we use it. So essentially, when do you mind if I use your name, like the shade? Or do you want to do you want me to use a different name? No, because I'm going to say who's asking the questions, right? Okay, I'll say the question master. The question master is going to be asking us questions. So when they ask us a question, we're going to press the, one of us is going to press the buzzer. Whoever presses it first can answer. So we're going to kind of race for it. And then if they get it wrong, the other person has a chance to answer. If they get it wrong, then no one gets a point. But we are allowed to ask for hints because we did do that last time. So I
guess one hint each.
One hint each. Yeah, we'll do one hint each. I think that's good. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And I think sorry, Jordan, you had something you wanted to say. A pose.
A pose is like an animation thing when you like animate.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, just pulls up and does this. As a name for it.
Are you okay with that A pose? Okay, he's A pose. He's not question master anymore.
Got it.
All right, so go ahead, ask us away.
For question 1, what is the highest grossing anime film of all time?
Naruto.
Incorrect. B?
One Piece?
Also incorrect. The highest grossing anime film is Demon Slayer Mugen Train.
What?
That's crazy, actually. I didn't know that. Do you like Demon Slayer? I like Demon Slayer.
I started watching it a bit, but then like
really
the
good.
guy's voice was just too annoying for me. The one with the yellow cape and the triangle.
Oh, Zenitsu?
Whatever his name is.
He can be really annoying, but like luckily he's not in a lot if he annoys you. Like he's there, but like you can get over it.
That stopped me from continuing it, but maybe
It's
I'll
so good,
jump
though.
again.
It is really good
and
though.
check it out. No, I mean I did like the first few, seasons.
And the most recent season doesn't even have him at all. He's not even in it. I love Zenitsu though. Okay, yeah, next question. We didn't get that one.
Question 2. What is the first anime ever produced?
Jesus.
That's not an anime.
No. I thought I knew. No, it was Astro Boy.
Incorrect.
I thought that was it.
Pokemon. I know it's not it.
No, it was. What was it?
Not even close. It's an anime called Namakura Gatana, which was made in 1917.
I would never know that. I would never know that.
Okay,
all right.
Interesting, but now we learned.
I thought it was Astro Boy. I was like so sure about
Isn't that a cartoon?
I think Astro Boy was the first to get popular here. Maybe that was what I was thinking.
Perhaps.
Anyways, next one.
Question number 3. What popular anime features a notebook that can kill people?
Death Note! I got the first point. Sorry. I knew you knew it. I was like, fuck you. All right.
That's all right.
Next one.
Question 4. What anime has a protagonist who aims to become the Pirate King?
One Piece.
It's correct.
I am actually watching One Piece hardcore right now. Just saying. I'm on like episode 191. I'm only like 1.5 tenths of the way there, but
I watched the live action, which was great.
it was good. I watched it. That's why I started watching it.
I think, yeah.
Anyways, next one.
Question 5.
Sorry.
In Naruto, what is the highest rank a ninja can achieve?
I don't know.
Kage level. Or if you wanted to go like that, Jonin.
I believe that is correct.
Yeah, you're gonna win this one. You know Naruto better than me, even though I watched it.
By Kage, did you mean Hokage?
Well, there's all Kages, right? Hokage is specifically for the Leaf Village, so all Kage level is the highest. But Jonin is meant for non-Kage, so I don't know the question. But I answered both. Sorry, was that correct? We never got a clarification.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know I'm right.
No, I was actually curious, I'm like...
Oh, okay.
They're like Akatsuki, like something so random.
All right, next one.
Question 6. What is the name of the giant humanoid creatures in Attack on Titan?
You son of a bitch.
I was going to name the anime Attack on Titan, but you said the name of the giants. So, giants?
It's Titans. I love you. But you know what? He's not wrong because in Japanese, it is interchangeable.
Yeah.
Titan and giant, they sometimes call them giants.
And the
So
Titans
he's
were
not
also called as
100%
the
wrong.
giant because
Yeah.
there are regular Titans and there's like the giant Titan.
Okay, so B, does that mean you're giving him your point?
He gets half a point. I get half a point. Quiet, you. This is how this works.
No, okay. That's okay. She can have the point.
I'm very competitive. Don't ask me those questions. I need to get something. All right, go on.
Question 7. In the Dragon Ball series, how many Dragon Balls are there?
Oh. There we go.
I'm pretty sure it's 7 or 8. 7?
Correct.
Yeah.
I was gonna get
I don't know why I was
7 too.
thinking 8, but then I was like, no, I think it's 7. Yeah. 7 heaven.
Question 8. Who are the 3 main characters in My Hero Academia?
I don't watch that anime. America Man. The guy with the weird American colors. That's actually his fucking name?
No, it's not his name, but
Oh,
I
okay.
know who you're talking.
Oh, okay. I was like, America Man.
Okay, so
And then, what is it? Bakugo? Is that one? Bakugo's a character I know. don't
all I
the
know
rest
is
of them.
black and green hair, yellow hair,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
a chick.
You wanna try
I don't know.
or?
What is
But just I want to say as well. I know a lot of people have been talking about My Hero Academia,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have been really liking it. But there's also some people, some demographics that are disliking it too.
I watched
and
one
I
episode.
wanted to get into it, but I don't have Crunchyroll. So,
You can watch it
yeah.
for free on Crunchyroll. It's just it has ads.
Oh
all
yeah,
over
true,
it, yeah.
true, yeah.
But
I mean, one day I'll eventually commit to it, but for the time being,
I don't know what it is.
Watch
Episode
another
1 just threw me off halfway through. I'm over it. But you know what? I was like
Hashtag
that with
over
One
it.
Piece too, and then
Yeah,
I
you
got
are.
into
One
it.
ninety- one
So
ninety-
maybe in like 10 years I'll fucking get into it. Who knows?
I think in 10 years you're gonna be done One Piece.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Well, it's supposed to be done in
At
2
the pace.
years, but
Yeah.
anyway, we don't know if that's gonna happen. Next one.
sure.
Let's move on.
You don't want the answers for that one?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Tell us.
The answers
won't know.
were Izuku Midoriya, Katsuki Bakugo, and
I was
All
right.
Might.
Okay, so American Man was close. And I said Bakugo. So I should get like
You just needed the actual main.
I know. Yeah, I knew. Anyways, next one.
Question 9. What is the name of the virtual world in Sword Art Online?
Never seen it.
I watched a few episodes and then I
remember?
fell off. So, Hunger Games.
No.
That was worth a shot, you know.
I don't know. Is it a, okay? Hint. Give us
Oh,
give
yeah.
us a hint.
I forgot we have hints that we haven't been using.
Give us a hint.
It's also referred to as the floating castle.
Castle in the sky.
Mount Olympus.
What?
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 Mount Olympus.
No.
Darn it.
I don't know what is
It's
it.
not. It's not the
What
Greek
is
mythology.
it? What is it?
The answer is Einkrad.
Huh?
What in the hell? How is that hint any? How would what? You could have said it was German sounding. I could really get. At least
And that's probably
guessed that.
Latin.
What? Eingard?
Einkrad.
Einkrat?
Einkrad.
Crad? Einkrat? That sounds very German. German. Okay, whatever. Next question. What?
No point.
Do you think we should stop at like 25 questions? What question are we on now?
10.
Yeah, so then maybe 15 more questions should be good.
Yeah, whichever.
Okay, moving on.
In Cowboy Bebop, what is the name of the spaceship the crew travels in?
Oh god, I watched this anime and I don't remember.
That's an anime.
It is Cowboy Bebop.
All you.
What the fuck do they call it?
Oh, use your hint.
Hint.
It's in the name of the show.
What was your question again?
Bebop?
Yes.
Okay, wait.
That's the name of this ship?
Yes.
Yo, I watched that whole thing. I didn't register. I have a problem with the names. Okay, next one.
Which anime features a protagonist who can turn into a giant armored creature?
Scanning.
Turn into a giant armor. Okay, hint.
Here, I'll give you the hint for this
Yeah.
one. It's not actually armored.
So just a giant creature.
Yes.
Another hint. Wait,
Oh,
use it your hint.
wait. Like, is it like Attack on? Like, wait, is it like Attack on
Attack
Titan?
on Titan?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you didn't buzz. You didn't buzz. I buzzed and I said
There,
Attack
now
on
you guys got your
Titan.
satisfaction. Oh wait, you buzzed?
Yeah, I buzzed and I said Attack on Titan.
Oh, okay.
She,
that's
she
fine.
stole the words from your mouth.
Yeah, I know. It's fine.
No, but I was thinking Attack on Titan, but he was talking. It was my turn.
There is no turn.
I know. I'm
It's
making
okay.
shit up now. Okay, I don't know if I should get that point. That seems cheap, though. You answered it first.
mean, you're already in the
We'll give it
lead.
to Z. We'll give it to Z. You gave me the other one. I'll give it to you.
Permanent marker, he already wrote it down.
Huh?
Permanent marker, he already wrote it.
Just cross it out.
I know. I was gonna say like it's not like a
Scribble
tattoo. No, I'm kidding.
Put an X. Just give it to Z. Okay, next one.
Question number 12.
Yeah.
Who is the highest ranking hero in One Punch Man?
One Punch Man?
Incorrect. He is nowhere even close.
No.
No,
I've never watched it.
I did, but
Was this?
I don't know if it was the Zodiacs or the 12 something.
The S rank heroes, yes.
I don't know if it's the Zodiacs or the 12.
Yeah, you have to buzz.
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 I'm gonna go with Zodiacs.
Incorrect. The highest ranking hero is Blast.
What
Blast.
is Blast?
Blast.
Who's Blast?
Oh, that was during their challenge, right? When they're in the building.
I think so.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched it. Okay.
Next one.
What is the unique power system in Hunter x Hunter called?
Never watched it.
Wait, unique power?
Did you ever
Unique
watch
power
Hunter?
system.
Hunter?
Like using Nen?
Yes.
Perfect.
Good job.
I'm like, I really like Hunter x Hunter. So.
Oh yeah, I've never watched it.
It's really good. But the
Like I
fifth
said, I don't
season
watch
was like, it was like very like dragged on or milked. And like the narration was pretty slow, but very dramatized.
This is where I feel he has
Like,
the
it was
advantage,
really
though.
good,
Can you
but, like,
see? Because
it-
he
they
watches
just
the big
really-
ones.
Really
I
like
don't.
dragged on, you know what I mean? Like, cause like the other previous seasons were all good. They were fast paced and stuff like that. And the Ant arc again was really good, but then it just kind of deviated away from everything. I don't know.
All right, he doesn't have the mic, so this whole discussion's gonna be cut out. Anyways, let's go.
I'm like talking to like my own like shadow.
like no one knows what you're saying. No one
Thank
knows
you,
what's
Casper, for
happening.
your comments.
You know,
Uh,
unless you plan on putting in the subtitles of what you said.
Mr. Identity. I don't know if I can-
Identity.
I don't.
A pose.
He's B pose. What?
Who's
Okay.
okay.
J pose. Okay.
Next one.
No, you had a question.
Yeah. Fuck. What was my question?
Hunter x Hunter.
Oh, it's not even that serious.
Damn, my. All right, let's move on. Next
Yeah? Okay.
one. Next one.
What is the name of the group of supernatural warriors in Bleach?
Soul Reapers.
Correct.
Yes.
Ha.
Okay.
Ha, ha,
I
ha.
started watching.
I watched
Bleach.
like 2 seasons of it.
Yeah.
So I remember that.
That was good.
Question 15. Which anime is set in a world where humanity lives in cities surrounded by giant walls?
God
Attack on Titan.
fucking
Correct.
Damn it.
Yes.
No, that one.
No, because like the thing is like, what's interesting is that we've answered like Attack on Titan, so we're thinking that that question is not going to be. A
Why is there
repeat of-
so many Attack on Titan? Guys, get creative. Think of other anime. Like, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking. I didn't say you. It's guys like the people who made these questions. Like
yeah.
there's 3 Attack on Titan questions. Like, move on.
And the answer for all 3 of them has been Attack on Titan.
Exactly. It's stupid. Well, one was Titan.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, next one.
What is the name of the currency in One Piece?
Barry.
Incorrect.
Whoa.
No, Barry. It's Barry.
Yeah, I would give it to her. It's belly, but
In Japanese, they say belly, but in English, it's berry.
They can't pronounce ours.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the R's, they have like, it's like an RL sound, so it's like, yeah.
I think she
It
gets the
is,
point.
berry.
She's like, I'm 190 episodes in. Like,
Yeah,
I know.
I know it's fucking berry. The live action says berry. The English says berry. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Question 17. What is the name of Goku's wife in the Dragon Ball series?
Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z? Okay, Chi-Chi.
Correct.
I was gonna make him.
They're like, Dragon Ball, he's a child. The fuck are you talking about? Anyways, I watched that as a child. I
have a good memory since then.
Yeah.
Nice.
Too many drugs. Hey, what?
Question 18. What type of food does Naruto Uzumaki love the most?
Ramen!
He buzzed.
We had our hands on at the same time. I know his hand was first. He gets it.
I was gonna say itatakemasu, but I'm like, no, that's the saying he says before he eats.
You should have used the harder one with the more obscure animes. I would have won that.
Well, it wasn't like obscure anime, it was just more obscure questions.
Oh.
Got it.
But see, that's what I hate about these anime trivia. They always do like the main, like the top popular ones right now. It's like, come on.
Okay, that Cowboy Bebop spaceship.
Cowboy Bebop is like one of the most popular animes.
I've never heard of. I thought it was a country.
They made a live action just
I thought
recently.
it was a country
ZEE!
cartoon on Cartoon Network. Okay.
You make me cry.
What?
You want a tissue?
Sure, I'm pretty sure you have something to clean up.
Oh my
There
God.
is a used.
I used that.
Used one.
Okay, moving on.
Tissue for your issue.
Question 19. What is the name of the intelligent humanoid fish species in One Piece?
They're fishmen.
Oh.
Yes.
What, actually?
They're fishmen, yeah.
That's sexist.
This is what?
What?
How is that sexist?
Because
Fishmen?
fish woman.
I don't think there's fish women. There's just fishmen.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that
Fish
far. Shut
women
up.
and the fish children too.
I've
And the
only
fish
seen
aunt, the
fishmen
fish
so
uncle.
far. I've only seen fishmen so far. I'm only 190 episodes in. Come on, guys.
Why wouldn't they just say fishermen?
No, they call them
okay.
fishmen. They've only said
Yeah.
fishmen so far. So
Okay.
I didn't
But
know they were women.
that wasn't that arc was presented after the
The arc was presented
the
like
live one, because remember how those little shark those
it's-
shark people.
It's in no. So they introduce. Well, the live action is 8 episodes, but it covers 60. It covers
Yes,
60
so-
episodes,
so-
and in the 60 episodes, fishmen are in it, and it
so
has a whole.
so
arc.
those are the ones that took
Arlo.
over that village. Yeah,
Arlo,
yeah.
he's a fishman.
Fishman,
Yeah,
okay,
he's
okay.
fishman.
Making sure.
Yeah.
So there's a woman, wasn't there? Oh no, because she can.
We haven't actually seen fish women if they do exist, but I didn't know they existed.
Oh no, because I was thinking about that.
I just thought they like asexually
Yeah,
reproduce.
no, I was thinking about Nami because Nami had to go.
Yeah,
like,
but she's not she's a
yeah,
human.
but she got the tattoo of her.
But she's not the race.
Yeah,
She's part of the
yeah.
group. Okay, anyways, next one.
Question 20. Who is the Full Metal Alchemist?
Oh my god. Eric Elric. Yeah, Eric.
Practically, his name is Edward Elric.
Oh, Eric. Why did I say Eric?
That's
Elric.
like-
Edward. Oh my god, yes. Eduardo Eric. I know.
Okay, going back to his
That's all I
ethnic
remember.
original
No,
birth
because-
certificate name.
Because it's so funny. Like, the thing that made me and Jacques laugh when we would watch it is, like, the in-between when it would be, like, the commercial, Eduardo Eric. Anyways, yeah, I knew that.
I've watched Full Metal Alchemist,
Full Metal Alchemist is my favorite.
but I have not memorized his name.
Edward?
It's also been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Well, a lot of people say Al because they think because he's a full
Yeah.
metal bodysuit, but Edward's actual name in the military is Full Metal.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways,
Question 21. What is the name of the main character in Spirited Away?
no, wait, Chihiro?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Ah.
What are you, the anime Wikipedia now? Like,
No, you were the anime Wikipedia up until now.
I'm Naruto Wikipedia.
You freaking knew all that. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Next one.
Can we do Pokemon now? Like, you know, I want to turn the tables around.
Let's do that next. We'll do that next.
Okay,
We'll do
okay.
Pokemon.
Question 22. In Neon Genesis and Evangelion.
I've never seen it.
Evangelion. Thank you. What are the giant biomachines piloted by the main characters called?
Gundams?
No.
Hint.
What do you mean no?
Oh, he said hint.
He's like, no, you're wrong.
Answer.
Well, because you buzzed before you said it.
I know, I'm trying to spell them out and delete some time.
So hint. Hint.
Take it from me. I'm going to continue dying.
The name of the giant mechs that they pilot is in the show. Or, sorry, it's in the anime name.
Evangelion? Yeah! I guess.
Intuition.
Yeah!
Wasn't the hint for Z?
Too bad.
I still would not have gone.
We made those. There are no rules. If you get the hint, I can still answer.
Hashtag Dua Lipa. Oh no, that's new rules. Not
I'm
new
joking.
Rules.
I probably shouldn't have answered that. I jumped in.
No,
It's okay.
I would have gotten it wrong. Then you would have.
Okay, so I win.
Yeah. You like hair flip.
My hair that I cut off today.
Question 23. What is the main sport featured in Haikyuu?
Volleyball. You can't mess with me. I know haiku.
I know a haiku poem.
Haiku.
Haiku, yeah.
Haiku's really good. You should watch it actually.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I always see it on Netflix popping up.
I don't usually watch sports anime. It's never been my thing, but Haiku is different for some reason.
I just like power and destruction and also like strength.
It's like really intense for no reason. It's like Attack on Titan in the beginning when they're all screaming all the time and they're screaming but about volleyball and they're all like, "Aw." Sorry, I don't know. It just, I liked it. Anyways.
24. Who is the main antagonist of Death Note?
Light Kira.
No, that's protagonist.
No, but he is an antagonist because he's the enemy.
An antagonist,
Okay, I guess
but he's not the
L.
one-
L, sure, but he's the good guy.
got
So
it
what the
correct.
fuck you want from
Is he
me?
the good one? I mean, you know.
In
He
terms of the
is-
show,
Because Kira
is
becomes.
the protagonist and L is the antagonist.
I mean, I guess so, but
on a
protagonists
moral
are.
scale, it's flipped.
Yeah, because protagonists are usually. Well, actually, what's the meaning of protagonist?
This one's so.
Because isn't the protagonist supposed to be like a positive, like hero figure?
No, protagonists are just who the show follows.
Oh!
And antagonists just go against the protagonist.
Oh, so then I misinterpreted. Yeah, so then L would be the antagonist. That's true.
Yeah.
Z didn't even answer anyway, so.
I didn't get a chance. No, but no, but the thing is, I was gonna wait because.
No, I won!
If she went with light, I would have said L. If she said L, I would have won with light. You know, like I would have kind of used that to my advantage. But then she
Yeah.
said both, so.
Yeah, because he also said 2 on one answer, so I get a second answer because you got to do that once.
As the French would say, touche.
And finally, question 25. Where did it go? What is the name of the dog in Cowboy Bebop?
Dog.
Incorrect.
I don't know.
Hint.
It is a number in a language.
Oh, I know what it is! Sorry, I know what it is. Can I go?
Yeah, just go.
Hachi.
Wrong.
No? Hachiko? Oh. Is it the number 8?
No.
7?
Nope.
You want to just list all of them?
6?
Wrong.
10?
No.
9?
No.
11, something like that. Like 11 makes sense.
No.
What the fuck is it then? 5?
Ein.
Huh?
What?
Ein.
Ein? Oh.
What's ein?
Oh, ein means 1 in German. Oh, I was thinking hachi like 8 in Japanese.
No.
Oh, see, I should have said 1 like Mexican, but
I don't
mean, it's not
remember
really
his name being ein. Why don't I remember this? What up? What?
Yeah.
You also didn't remember the name of the ship, so.
That's true. I have a problem. Yeah?
Are we continuing with a Pokemon quiz or?
No.
No, we're done.
Yeah.
If we're at 25, we're done. So
Yeah.
who won?
B by.
Aya! Was it by 1 point?
No! By a landslide is what they say.
Z got 5, B got 14.
Oh shit!
So wait, that means
How did that happen?
that means 19 questions were answered correctly, and we got 6 with all. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were just like, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, that's pretty. I think that was still fair because
Yeah.
you know a decent amount actually.
Yeah, and you have lightning speed on hand, so we're gonna like. No, okay.
Swipe it.
Combined together, you two got a C on your anime analysis quiz.
Woo!
That's Asian fail.
All right, perfect. So that concludes our trivia and B to Z portion of this episode.
So thank you for joining.
Thank you
I
for
hope
joining us. You could do your thing.
Hope you enjoyed it. Leave us comments, subscribe, like, share, talk about it, make me
Yeah.
sneeze, like the Japanese myth. So
Yeah. Who's talking about me?
Yeah.
I remember I had to learn about that. I didn't understand anime when they would sneeze and be like, "Who's talking about me?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, what's going on here?
That's a very interesting myth.
It's like, who's gossiping about me? I sneeze a lot, so if that's true.
But there's two kinds of people.
People talk shit a lot.
No, but there's two kinds of people, because like people would like sneeze and like someone's like, who's talking about me, and like in a smirking kind of way. And then you have the other
like,
ones that's
ooh.
like, yeah, I know. And then just like people sneeze are like that move.
Those are funny. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again next episode. Bye.
Bye. From B to Z.